let's get into everyone's favorite water bug and all the really strange villains that he's fought over the years. 10. Captain Demo. I didn't know that pirates could get cooler, but then in walks Captain Demo. He uses a laser cannon and his ship is rigged to sail underwater. His crew all use experimental tech on a 16th century model ship, and their biggest feat was rigging the entire city of Atlantis to blow if Aquaman didn't follow the captain's every whim. But one oyster signal jammer later, and the day was saved. 9. Animal Master. Gustav, the Animal Master, could have easily had a steady career in the circus business, but unfortunately, he was really greedy. He decided to instead train animals to commit various crimes for him, which was not really a problem for Aquaman until the villain escaped and took his show on the water. Gustav found himself on an island and trained the animal inhabitants to defeat Aquaman, but they were still no match for him and lost. 8. Giant Jellyfish. There are giant jellyfish that live in the DC oceans and they really hate Atlanteans. They hate them because they want to be the leaders of the ocean, so they set out to essentially make their jelly race superior. They have gone to war with the Atlanteans, concealing their true form in metal shells, so the water residents didn't really know what they were up against. In the end, they were all eliminated but 3 that haven't been seen again. 7. Abyssal Dark. A bit more recent with the 2017 debut, Abyssal Dark was awoken by accident. Love it when that happens. Originally sealed away for a millennia as a result of a mystic war, the Abyssal Dark is thought to be the source of all Atlantean magic. Its influence over the seas is pretty limited, so it hasn't caused like many problems past its 3 appearances, but it's still pretty neat. 6. Creature King. Aquaman and Aqualad were tricked by a diver who was an ancient freak. He really wanted to find a mysterious treasure chest with a potion in it that turns the drinker into a 20-foot tall purple monster. I mean, like, to each their own, but that is not how I would choose to spend my day. There is a later version of this character with a very different backstory. Instead of finding a potion and getting his powers, this version was experimented on and became Chimera. 5. Fiend with 5 Faces. The Fiend with 5 Faces is the gigantic union of the last gods of Olympia. They were originally 5 individuals, but combined together because they were more powerful together than on their own and had a better chance at survival after their home was destroyed. They awaken once a millennium, they cause some problems, and then they go back to sleep, which is a casual routine. Anunnaki. This alien race is responsible for sinking Atlantis. The Anunnaki are very old. They were at war with the hunter-gatherers for control of Earth, lost obviously, and they've been angry about it ever since. They left some observation ships on the Earth, the arrival of which ended up sinking Atlantis. 3. Baron de Bois. An evil ancient sorcerer, Baron de Bois tricked Aquaman and Aqualad into freeing him from his microscopic prison. He told the heroes that he was shrunk and trapped in a water droplet, and the elixir to save him was in this very dangerous, trap-rigged mountain. The wizard used spells to turn the ocean life against the Atlanteans, but when de Bois finds himself on the wrong end of his own magic, he ends up right back where he started, trapped. 2. Quink. Every Justice League member gets a 5th dimension imp to annoy them. Superman has Mr. Mix, and Aquaman has Quisp. Quisp is more help than a hindrance actually, except for in Aquaman issue 6 when he turned evil. But it turns out it was actually his evil twin, Quink. Quink was tricked by pirate Captain Slade into believing Aquaman was a villain. Then we actually meet a 3rd imp named Quirk that is just off being a menace. Upon realizing that Aquaman is actually good and Captain Slade is bad, Quisp, Quink, and Quirk work together to defeat the captain. 1. Pomoxis. Pomoxis used the ocean against Aquaman in his plan to seize control of Atlantis. Working with pirate Captain Clay, they planted special food that attracts sea monsters on various vessels. The pirate raids the ships for treasure afterwards, and Aquaman gets lured out to that fight, giving Pomoxis the window to seize the throne in his absence. He doesn't keep that position for long as Aquaman allies with those sea monsters and defeats the villain.
Number 10. The Aquaman. First on our list today is Arthur Curry of the Wildstorm universe. Now I know you're probably thinking, how different could this Aquaman really be if he has the same name and still goes by Aquaman? Well, let me tell you, when I found out about him, I was truly shocked. Arthur, like his main counterpart, still has all his undersea abilities, but instead he gained them by genetically splicing his DNA with that of sea life so that he could, get this, terrorize and demand human sacrifices from a local fishing village. Now these genetic mutations gave him not only the ability to survive underwater and traverse the aquatic terrain with ease, but it also gave him superhuman strength, a ridiculously scary physique, and claws just for that little extra intimidation factor. Now why would he do this, you ask? Well, like I said, one of the reasons was so he could terrorize innocent villagers, but apparently the main reason is that he was so obsessed with his family's supposed heritage, believing himself to be the true king of the sea. What a nut job. Check out his story for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2018's Wildstorm, Michael Cray, number 4. Number 9. Aqua Beast. Born to a fairly wealthy family, Peter Dudley was a spoiled playboy who one day had a chance encounter with Aquaman and Mera while he was out yachting, and as one does. He immediately fell in love with Mera, who was not interested in him for, obvious reasons, so Dudley set out to beat Aquaman at his own game so he could win Mera's love. He hired a scientist named Dr. Hans Ludorf and told him to recreate Aquaman's powers only stronger. Dr. Hans tried to comply, but something in the process went wrong and Dudley became a hulking monstrosity with at least twice Aquaman's superhuman strength and the ability to breathe underwater. Now dubbing himself Aqua Beast, Peter Dudley attacked Aquaman and kidnapped Mera. Whether or not Aquaman could have defeated Dudley in his Aqua Beast form remains a mystery, however, because Dudley and Mera were then attacked by Hamuri, an extraterrestrial from an unspecified aquatic planet who had come to Earth plotting a global conquest. Hamuri and Dudley fought, and in the course of the battle both fell into a tidal whirlpool from which neither one was able to escape from. Check out Dudley in 1967's Aquaman, number 34. Number 8. Orm Marius. The half-brother of Aquaman and also his greatest enemy, Orm Marius, aka the Ocean Master, appeared pretty early on in Orm's career as Aquaman. Over anything else, Ocean Master desires the throne of Atlantis, and he's done some pretty maniacal things to try and get it. Adopting the identity of human businessman Orm Marius, Ocean Master built a private fleet and attempted to plunder New Marine City, a construction project on the Gotham City waterfront using his half-brother Aquaman, who he had hypnotized as, some muscle. Aquaman was freed from Orm's influence by Batman and driven from Gotham. Aquaman prevented Commissioner Gordon from killing Orm because he desired to bring his brother back to justice himself. Wondering why I'm considering Orm to be a dark alternate version of Aquaman? Well, it's because in one of the last settings of this villain, he has used his mystical talents to alter reality so that he was Aquaman, and Orm was Ocean Master. As Aquaman, Orm held Sub Diego under his evil rule, however the heroic Ocean Master was able to defeat him, of course. Check out Ocean Master's story for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1966's Aquaman, number 29. Number 7. Thanatos. Meant to be a dark reflection of Aquaman, Thanatos comes to us from an other dimensional realm known as Nether Space that is kind of reverse purgatory, where beings known as the Others keep entities until they are filled with sufficient evil to be returned to the New Earth dimension, only coming out of this dimension to lure victims into his world so that he could steal their identities. One day he decided that it was time to go for the big guns, and he lured Aquaman to his mirror by sending him a message from Aqualad, asking to meet in the abandoned house the mirror resided in. Satisfied with the powerful identity, Thanatos kept Aquaman's form but was eventually banished back to the Nether Space for, obvious reasons. We see Thanatos return once more. This time it was when Aquaman found his way to the Nether Space as he was in search of Mera. Aquaman and Thanatos engaged in a final battle in which Aquaman is the victor, of course, but he refuses to kill Thanatos and the others see this as a weakness and a lack of evil. They deem Aquaman unready to leave, but during the battle Thanatos proved himself to be filled with sufficient evil, and they allowed him to return to the New Earth universe where he could continue to live as Aquaman. Check out the rest of his story for yourself, starting with 1970's Aquaman, number 54. Number 6. King Proximus. One of many corrupt Atlanteans, Proximus was one of the worst, conspiring to straight up eliminate Aquaman for being the chosen hero. Proximus summoned Aquaman back to Poseidonus under the pretext of investigating a series of bizarre explosions taking place outside the city. When the two went to investigate, Proximus pushed Aquaman into the path of the spiraling vortex, sending him backwards through time like 2,500 years. Returning to Atlantis, Proximus assumed Aquaman's appearance and told everyone that the real Proximus had died in the explosions. With Aquaman's reputation, he was able to do pretty much anything and everything. However, he was eventually taken down by Aquaman after he returned to the present alongside Aqualad. A short time later, Proximus conspired with a pirate named Captain Clay, and together they lured a pack of sea monsters to attack Atlantis. While Aquaman and Aqualad were distracted trying to keep the creatures away from the populated areas, Proximus took advantage of the situation and staged a coup against the Atlantean king Stamar. His first official act as the newly crowned king was to imprison Aquaman and Aqualad. However, this didn't really last too long because our heroes were able to dethrone him and take him down. Check out his 4-issue run for yourself, starting with the 1962's Aquaman, number 3. Number 5. Aquadus. Hailing from Earth 9, Dr. Aquadus was once a scientist of the Svitavi Collective, which was the company that was the lead designer of the Red Tornado warhead. After the completion of the Red Tornado, he decided it was time to work on another experiment, which was learning to teleport living tissue. This turned out to be, not the best idea though, because the experiment led to an accident that bonded Aquadus to a nearby lake that transformed his entire body into water. This had its perks though, because now he had the ability to control and manipulate pretty much every body of water, so I guess it wasn't all bad. Dubbing himself Aquaman, from that point on, he shifted his eyes onto world domination, doing so by crafting a supergun that would destroy Earth's moon and allow him to completely harness the raw power of all the water on Earth. His plot was soon discovered by 6 heroes: the Atom, Flash, Joker, Manhunter, Plastic Man, and Spectre, and the heroes put a stop to Aquadust's plan, in which he was obliterated from the exploding backlash caused by his destroyed supergun. Check out his story in 1997's Tangent Comics Secret 6, number 1. Number 4. Underwater Man. On Earth 10, the history of not only the planet, but many of our superpowered friends is a bit different from what you might expect. On this Earth, Superman, known as Overman, crash landed as a baby in Germany instead of Kansas, and the Germans used him to win World War II and basically take over the whole world. And, you know, along with an evil Superman, obviously comes an evil version of the Justice League known as the New Reichman. On this evil team is an Atlantean known as Underwater Man, and he is basically Aquaman in every way, shape, and form, because the two share all of their powers. However, the biggest difference is that, this version is, well, evil. Underwater Man is a firm believer in the World War II era Germanic thinking, and he truly thought that Atlantis was the birthplace and root of the Aryan race, so that's why he aligned himself with the New Reichman. Eventually though, and thankfully, Overman realized that what they were doing was wrong, and he leaked some precious information to the freedom fighters that resulted in the demise of not only the New Reichman, but Metropolis as well. Check out Underwater Man in his first appearance in 2015's The Multiversity Master Men, number 1. Number 3. The Drowned. Coming to us from Earth -11, one of the many Earths from the Dark Multiverse, is Bryce Wayne. Bryce became the Batwoman of her universe after her father, Martin Wayne, was murdered in an alley. So, pretty standard Batman stuff. Later, she became romantically involved with Sylvester Kyle, who was also murdered, and this set Bryce on a mission to kill every last metahuman around. And then, after 18 months, she succeeded after killing Aquawoman with her own trident. Now, in retaliation, the Atlanteans submerged all of Gotham and some part of the world in water. But Bryce, after many augmentations to her body and with Aquawoman's trident, was able to conquer the Atlanteans and submerge the rest of her world in water. Now, like all of the Dark Knights under the Batman Who Laughs, the Drowned represents one of Batman's fears. This one being the fear of going too far in the fight against superhumans, his love for Catwoman, and his inability to trust anyone but himself. Check her story out for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 2017's Dark Days, The Casting, number 1. Number 2. Sea King. From Earth 3, an alternate reality that was supposedly said to be the birthplace of true evil. Now on this Earth, nobody cares about right or wrong, they only care about strength and having power. So the weak are annihilated and only the strong live on. This is where Sea King comes in, the evil version of Aquaman who is a member of the Crime Syndicate, aka the Evil Justice League. Sea King, along with the rest of the Crime Syndicate, escaped the destruction of their native Earth by using a portal created by the Outsider to travel to our prime Earth. Unfortunately, Sea King did not survive the journey and immediately died the moment he exited the portal. The Syndicate dumped their fallen comrade in the middle of the ocean. However, after sinking to the bottom, Sea King suddenly awoke for, some unknown reason. During the Crime Syndicate's initial attack, Deadman entered the lifeless Sea King's body for protection, and by entering, he no longer knew who he was and began attacking his team when they came looking for him. John Constantine was able to break Sea King's hold on Deadman, though he locked him in the body, seeing it as useful in their plans to defeat the Crime Syndicate. Check out Sea King for yourself, starting with 2013's Justice League Volume 2, number 23. Number 1. Emperor Aquaman. Now, just checking, have I mentioned how much I love the Flashpoint timeline? No? Not enough, you say? Well, perfect, because next on our list is Orin of the Flashpoint timeline, otherwise known as Emperor Aquaman. Now, if you're not familiar with one of the sickest timelines in DC, basically what happened is Barry Allen went back in time to prevent the death of his mother. But doing this had some pretty severe consequences, as it rewrote all history and created a new timeline. In this timeline, Orin was brought back to Atlantis when he was a teenager due to the death of his grandfather. As a result, the young Arthur never learned compassion and kindness from his father, who was killed by the Atlantean agent sent to recover him. Fast forward to the present day, and we see Atlantis in an all-out war against the Amazons because Wonder Woman killed Mira, his wife, in retaliation to having her mother killed. Aquaman caused Western Europe to sink into the sea, killing over 60 million people, intending to also sink England and the rest of the world as well. His full plan never gets realized though, because a final battle is waged between Emperor Aquaman and Wonder Woman. However, they're both approached by the Flash and the rest of the heroes who are there to stop the war for good. Check out his full story starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, number 1.
Coming in at number 10, talking to fish. Look, almost everyone knows Aquaman as the guy who can talk to fish. It's the most common thing brought up when talking about the hero. But that statement is both a huge misunderstanding and only one small part of a much more interesting ability. Aquaman is not like the Deep from The Boys. As far as we know, fish and marine life are not at the level of intelligence that allows them to hold conversations. They can't tell you how their day is going or try and maintain relationships with us, and honestly, Why would they want to? We kinda suck. Aquaman is not actually talking to fish. Instead, Aquaman uses telepathy. He can hear the voice of the sea and communicate with its many denizens living within it, along with those who spring from it through empathic communication. While he is more than capable of using this ability to force marine beings to do what he wants, Aquaman prefers to telepathically suggest aquatic life towards his goal or out of harm's way in order to maintain their respect. This is something he has been able to do since he was a child, but it doesn't just pertain to aquatic life. Although he can't force humans or other creatures to do his bidding in the same way he can with the denizens of the sea, through his telepathy he is more than capable of weakening, probing, dominating, and attacking non-aquatic minds as well. And he's even used these abilities to boost up the power of his own teammates. Number 9. Accessing the clear. Prior to the New 52 reboot, Aquaman possessed the ability to tap directly into a force known as the clear. This primordial force is what binds all life in the sea and provides ocean-themed heroes with their superpowers. Thanks to his harnessing of the clear, Aquaman's awesome natural telepathy that we just talked about was augmented to a larger degree, allowing him to communicate with and summon sea creatures from the other side of the planet and send out telepathic broadcasts across the ocean. It even allowed him to form a universal consciousness with all life in the sea, enabling him to send his mind out to see through the eyes of sea life. Something interesting about this force is that, well, technically, all life at some point originated from the ocean. So, Aquaman can also push his telepathic powers to reach out to the higher land creatures to find that element of their brains that was once an aquatic dwelling creature and manipulate it. Now, post New 52, this connection to the clear has been altered slightly and is now known as a connection with the life force. The life force is one of the 7 forces of the universe, and for Aquaman, his connection to the life force is focused on marine life, and not just the marine life of Earth either. Through the life force, Arthur is connected to all living beings, which has enabled him to establish a supernatural link to any and all sentient entities throughout the entire cosmos. He can use this connection to determine a being's origin, as he was able to do when he determined that the Void Song came from an ocean planet after being in close contact with it. With the life force, a lot of his abilities are similar to the connection to the clear, with a whole bunch more still unknown even to Aquaman, which leaves some pretty exciting potential for his character and what powers he could possess in the future. Number 8. Night vision. Now, I don't know if you know, but the sea is deep, and a large majority of it is so far away from the surface that it's pretty much in a constant state of almost complete darkness. And even if it isn't, if it's nighttime or if we're looking through murky water, forget about it. You ain't seeing anything down there. It's estimated that the average human can see between 165 and 230 feet deep in moderately clear water. Well, for Aquaman, an Atlantean human hybrid, he once said that he could see clearly in depths as far down as 6,000 fathoms, aka 36,000 feet. That is insane. That includes seeing through the murkiest of waters. So, now, take that incredible supervision and put it on land where it's not inhibited by water, and Aquaman has incredible supervision, allowing him to see clearly in the dark and see things that other League members could never even hope to pick up on. Number 7. Summoning undead sea life. Some of our heroes' powers really only come to light or become useful in very specific situations, and some literally only appear in key events, never to be seen again. Now, an example of that kind of power for Aquaman came during the Brightest Day crossover event, which followed the awesome Blackest Night. In Blackest Night, Aquaman was one of a bunch of heroes and villains that were resurrected from the underworld to become members of the Black Lantern Corps. After their defeat, the remaining heroes and villains who returned to the land of the living had to now find their purpose. Aquaman was returned with the purpose of both saving Aqualad and preventing a war between Atlantis and Zabel. Arthur found that since he was resurrected to serve as a member of the Black Lantern Corps, he was now able to summon undead sea life to come to his aid. And trust me when I say that it is much cooler than you might think. Unfortunately though, it didn't really stick around for a long time. Number 6. magic. Now before you get all up in arms, no, Aquaman is not any kind of otherworldly powerful magic wielder. He's no Zatanna, Constantine, or Dr. Fate, but still, a lesser known inclusion to his surprisingly long list of abilities is that Aquaman has the underlying potential to cast and manipulate the forces of magic. Now it's worth noting that normally he needs an item of power to channel this power through, like, oh I don't know, a trident for example. But on a few occasions he's been able to use magic without his trident or any kind of channeling object for that matter. This magical ability is bestowed on him simply by being a member of Atlantean royalty, but also by being blessed by both Poseidon and the Lady of the Lake, the overseer of the metaphysical realm known as the Secret Sea. He has shown the magical capability to shoot lightning from his trident, manipulate the weather, create jets of water out of his hands, and he has even been able to dehydrate some enemies to the point of sending them to the afterlife, which is an absolutely terrifying way to go. But thanks to his magical affinity, Arthur Curry is also resistant and resilient to the forces of magic too, which is something he actually has over Superman. So take that, you haters. Number 5. Healing. In the comics, there was a time when Aquaman lost his left hand, and funnily enough, this actually managed to make him even cooler and or stronger in a few different ways. To make up for his lost appendage, he got himself a wide variety of alternate hands, each with different benefits. He has had a cybernetic hand with a retractable hook, as well as a hand made out of liquid metal. But I think his most notable hand was a special one made out of water, courtesy of the Lady of the Lake, called the Water Bearer's Hand. This hand was what allowed Aquaman to create freezing or scalding jets of water from his hands and dehydrate fools, but it has even more nifty benefits beyond that. Thanks to his magical water hand, Aquaman has received the ability to completely heal others with its magical properties. But then, there's also that nifty life force connection. This has allowed Aquaman to even restore fallen gods into their divine forms and retrieve the essences of dead gods, meaning Aquaman has not only resurrection abilities, but also resurrection that extends to godly entities themselves. Number 4. Portals. Let's jump back to that magic hand here for a second. The Water Bearer hand bestowed on Aquaman numerous magical abilities. Now we've talked about a bunch, but the hand seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. Another attribute it granted to Aquaman was the ability to open interdimensional portals. Obviously, as we've proven so far, Aquaman is no slouch, but he isn't really that helpful when it comes to extraterrestrial threats that require him to venture out of this world. For that, he would traditionally need the help of his other League members, but with the Water Bearer hand's magic, that was no longer the case. Now he could travel great distances across the world in an instant and even out into the wider universe or even other dimensions. Needless to say, the Lady of the Lake really lent Aquaman a hand with this gift. Pun intended. Number 3. Flight. This power has actually been a hotly contested point among fans of Aquaman for a long time. A lot of people believe that Aquaman cannot fly, and they are actually partially right. Honestly, there isn't really a need for him to fly. Being an aquatic character, it seems almost pointless, and there is also the question of how he would even be able to break gravity like that. Although you could ask that of any flying character, honestly. I think the confusion really comes from the fact that Aquaman does often perform super jumping to get around. I'm talking he jumps miles in single bounds, similar to the Hulk. That is easy to mistake for actual flying, and for a long time that was the extent of his airborne abilities. But luckily for Aquaman, he has a pretty good relationship with the god of the sea, Poseidon, and thanks to that Olympian's blessing, Aquaman gained the actual ability to fly in the Prime Earth post-Flashpoint DC universe. Unsurprisingly though, he still doesn't really use it that much. Number 2. Water Wraith. JLA The Obsidian Age was a story from 2003 which, among other things, involved Aquaman and Atlantis being sent 3,000 years back in time, where they were ultimately put under the thumb of the League of Ancients. As we would almost all expect, the Justice League discovered the disappearance and they go to the rescue, traveling back in time to save their comrade and his people. When they arrive, they learn that the sorceress Gamamemini, whose name I likely savagely butchered just now, had trapped Aquaman's consciousness in a pool control of water. Now, after freeing the rest of the Atlanteans, the Justice League launched their final assault on this sorceress to no avail as she reappeared in the future. Now, in the future, or I guess the present, she attempted to take control of the world by causing a global drought. Now, in order to stop her, Zatanna channeled Aquaman's consciousness into the oceans. This means Aquaman, with this upgrade, literally became a living body of water, and he used this awesome water wraith power to defeat Gemimemene once and for all. But this isn't the only time he's taken on a form composed entirely of H2O. And finally, in at number 1, super strength. Super strength is one of those things that most superheroes are just kind of expected to have. But not all super strength is equal, and characters have varying degrees of it. I think a lot of people who are familiar with the character of Aquaman but aren't his close fans may underestimate his strength. Again, we know Aquaman is often the butt of a lot of jokes related to his usefulness, but this guy is no slouch, not by a long shot. Aquaman is strong. He is more than strong enough to send Superman and Wonder Woman several dozen feet away with singular blows, which is nothing to scoff at. He has been capable of lifting a 160,000 ton sea liner barehanded and lifting and throwing a sunken cargo ship. But even more impressive than that is when he literally pushed an entire tectonic plate over the entrance to the trench's lair while underwater. Aquaman's strength is something that is often overlooked, kind of like how the character himself is overlooked much too often.